It looked like any ordinary dime, tarnished, faded, tossed into a change jar without a second thought, but this little coin, barely the size of your thumbnail, would go on to stun the entire coin collecting world, because when the right collector saw it, they didn't see just 10 cents, they saw $1.60 million. One woman in Denver almost spent it at a gas station. Her hands were cold, her mind was on the price of gas, not pocket change. She slid the coins across the counter, but the cashier paused, and everything changed, because this wasn't just any dime. It was the rare 2022 D-Mint Mark dime, a modern coin hiding a secret that could make someone a millionaire overnight. But how could a coin from 2022, fresh from the US Mint, be worth more than a luxury home? The answer lies deep in a twist of history, human error, and fate itself. The US Mint in Denver, known for precision, accidentally let a handful of dimes slip through with microscopic minting flaws. These were not visible to the untrained eye, but to experts? They were a siren call. A tiny misaligned strike, a faint doubling in the date, an anomaly in the rim that only appears under magnification. Most people never notice, but those who do, change their lives forever. And here's where it gets even stranger. Some say only a few dozen exist, others believe fewer than 10. No one knows for sure, but when one surfaced at auction in early 2024, the bidding war was brutal. It started modestly, $500, $1,000, but then the numbers exploded, $50,000, $300,000, $500,000. The crowd gasped as the hammer finally came down, $1.6 million, for a dime. But what happened next stunned even seasoned collectors. Phones began ringing in coin shops across the country. Dealers were desperate, buyers restless, everyone wanted to find another, because if one could fetch that much, imagine what the next could do. In living rooms and garages, in dusty coffee cans and sock drawers, people began searching. One man in Ohio poured out a jar he hadn't touched in years. There it was, a 2022 D dime. His heart raced. Could it be one of them? He held it up to the light, a sharp breath escaped his lungs. There was the telltale sign, a faint doubling of the 2 and the date, the rim slightly thicker on one side. A mistake from the mint, and a miracle for him. Collectors were shocked by the speed of the market. Coins that had been worth pocket change just months earlier were now being sold for tens of thousands, even before official grading. Grading companies were overwhelmed, working day and night, each new verified find was like striking gold. No, better than gold, because gold doesn't carry a hidden story in its design. Gold doesn't accidentally appear in your pocket after buying a cup of coffee. But there's something else you need to know. Many fake 2022 D-era dimes are already circulating. Schemers are artificially damaging coins, trying to pass them off as the real thing. These counterfeits fool plenty of amateurs, but not the experts, and if you mistake a fake for the real deal, you could lose thousands. So how do you know you found the real $1.6 million treasure? First, check the mint mark, a sharp, clear D to the right of the date. Then, under a magnifying glass, look for the doubled 2 in the year, especially the second digit. Check the rim, one side may appear slightly thicker than the other. And finally, examine the torch on the reverse. On genuine errors, the lines in the torch flame appear slightly blurry, almost ghost-like. This is the coin that has changed lives, a piece of everyday change that could pay off mortgages, erase debts, and buy the home of your dreams. It's still out there. In purses, in pockets, in jars sitting in the corner of kitchens. Every time you get a diamond change, it could be the one. Because here's the truth, the next person to find a 2022 D-Mint Mark dime with this error might be you, and when that happens, 10 cents could turn into $1.6 million. This coin almost slipped through history, unnoticed, until one sharp-eyed collector pulled it from a handful of change and realized what he was holding could change his life forever. That ordinary-looking dime, with a faint P-Mint mark from 1990, ended up being worth more than most houses, up to $1.7 million. Imagine that. 10 cents, turned into a life-changing fortune. It's the kind of story that makes even the most seasoned collectors stop in their tracks, because this isn't just about silver, copper, or nickel. It's about an extraordinary mistake, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone like you to uncover it. The story begins in 1990, at the Philadelphia Mint. Millions of Roosevelt dimes were struck that year, each carrying the proud P-Mint mark, each destined for pockets, purses, and piggy banks across the country. But in the midst of this massive production run, something happened. A handful of coins left the presses with a flaw so rare, so baffling, that decades later, experts are still debating how it happened. Some believe a misaligned die created microscopic anomalies in the date and lettering. Others think a rogue planchet, perhaps leftover from a special proof run, was fed into the presses by mistake. But whatever the cause, it created a coin unlike any other. And once the first one was found and authenticated, The coin collecting world went into a frenzy. Dealers were calling each other at midnight. Auction houses scrambled to verify rumors. And collectors? They were emptying their change jars, one dime at a time, hoping lightning would strike twice. But here's where it gets truly unbelievable: a perfect specimen surfaced at a major auction. The bidding war that erupted wasn't just about money. It was about owning a piece of history, a mistake so rare it might never be repeated. The final hammer came down at a staggering price, $1.7 million. Think about that for a moment. A dime small enough to slip between your couch cushions, worth enough to buy beachfront property, a luxury car, and still have more left in the bank than most people save in a lifetime. And yet, most people still have no idea these dimes exist. But here's the twist that stuns even veteran coin hunters: not every valuable 1990p dime screams its rarity. In fact, many look almost identical to the ordinary ones jingling in your pocket right now. The difference? Microscopic details, a subtle shift in the lettering, an unusual texture on the surface, or the faint shimmer of a proof strike on a coin that should have been circulated. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread online. Photos were posted. And suddenly, thousands of people were hunched over magnifying glasses, scanning their 1990 dimes with trembling hands. Pawn shops saw a spike in dime sales. Coin shows had lines of people clutching tiny plastic bags with one question: could this be the one? One collector, a retiree from Florida, told the story of how he found his rare 1990p dime wedged in the corner of a kitchen drawer. He'd tossed it in there years earlier, thinking it was just spare change. Today? That dime alone could pay off his mortgage twice over. And yet, here's the part that might surprise you most: not all rare 1990p dimes are flawless. Some carry light scratches. Some have faint discoloration. What matters is the rarity of the error, the alignment of the dies, and in some cases, the unique composition of the planchet. That's why professional grading is critical, because the difference between a regular 10-cent coin and $1 million treasure can be invisible to the naked eye. Collectors were shocked when a slightly worn example, not even mint state, crossed the auction block for over $800,000. That sale shattered the myth that only pristine coins fetch big numbers, and it fueled a whole new wave of hunting. And here's where your heart might start racing. Right now, there are likely more of these 1990p dimes out there, hiding in jars, drawers, and pockets. Some may never be found. Others may be sitting in plain sight, waiting for someone with the curiosity to check. Start with the basics, flip it under a bright light and check the mint mark. A sharp, well-struck P is standard, but look for any irregularities, doubled edges on the letter, unusual spacing from the date, or a slight tilt. Then, examine the surface. Many of the rare specimens have an almost mirror-like finish on one side, a telltale sign of an unexpected proof quality strike. If you spot something unusual, don't spend it. Don't clean it. Store it safely and get it professionally graded. Every year, people unknowingly spend coins worth hundreds of thousands because they didn't take the time to check. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Yours could too. This exact dime could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It looked like an ordinary dime. A coin so small, most people wouldn't even bend down to pick it up if they saw it lying in the street. But this 2016 D dime, almost got tossed into a gas station change jar instead. It sold for enough to buy a mansion. $1.8 million. At first, even the collector who found it couldn't believe what he was holding. It was light, familiar. And yet, there was something off, something the average person would have missed, something the U.S. Mint never meant to leave the building. What could possibly make a dime, a piece of metal worth 10 cents, command the price of a luxury sports car fleet? That mystery begins in Denver, inside the high-security walls of the U.S. Mint in 2016. Here, billions of coins rolled off the presses, each one checked, weighed, and polished. But somewhere in that endless river of metal, a mistake slipped through. A mistake so rare, experts didn't even agree it existed, until one surfaced. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Collectors began whispering about a rumor, a 2016 D dime unlike any other. The chatter grew louder. Dealers started scanning every single roll of change they could get their hands on. Pawn shops got calls in the middle of the night. One man even admitted to driving across 3 states to grab a sealed box of 2016 dimes from a bank vault, because if the rumor was true, it could mean life-changing money. This was no ordinary error coin. The flaw was hidden, subtle, almost invisible to the naked eye. But once you knew what to look for, it screamed at you from the coin's surface. Some say it was the result of a double strike, the coin being hit twice in the press. Others believe it was a rare die clash, where the stamping machines themselves accidentally struck each other, imprinting ghostly shapes where they didn't belong. Whatever it was, the result was breathtaking and priceless. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. One of these dimes ended up in the change from a vending machine in a Colorado rest stop. A man, a retired mechanic, pulled it out of his pocket later that night. He almost spent it on a cup of coffee the next morning, but a glint in the light caught his eye. That tiny glint would change his life forever. When he showed it to a local coin shop, the dealer froze, the room went quiet, then, without a word, the dealer locked the front door. He pulled out a jeweler's loupe and stared at the coin for what felt like hours. Finally, he looked up and said 4 words, "You have no idea." But most people still miss it. The dime was authenticated, certified, and sent to auction. The bidding war was fierce. Two of the biggest collectors in the country went head to head, each determined to claim it. The price climbed past $500,000, then $900,000, then over $1 million. When the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was $1.80 million for a 10-cent coin. And here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night: experts believe there are more out there, dimes that slipped through the cracks, hiding in bankrolls, tucked away in old jars, even rattling around in your car's cup holder. Most will be spent and lost forever, unless someone knows exactly what to look for. First, the mint mark. This treasure bears the D4 Denver, just to the right of Roosevelt's neck. Second, the error. You're looking for doubling in the lettering, especially in United States of America, and 1 dime. Sometimes, the torch's flames appear doubled or ghosted, like a shadow is following them. Third, the condition. Even the rarest error loses value if it's worn down. Mint state quality can be the difference between a few $100s and $1 million miracle. And here's a warning: countless fakes are already circulating. Some are altered with acid, others struck from counterfeit dyes. If you think you found one, never clean it, never polish it, and never try to fix it. Get it authenticated by a top grading service immediately. Collectors were shocked when the first one surfaced. Dealers are still hunting for the next, and one day, it could be you who feels that rush, that heart-stopping moment when you realize the coin in your hand could change everything. The truth is, this exact dime could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. It looked like just another dime, a small, silver coin no one would glance at twice. But this one changed everything. What most people would have used to buy a gumball, one man sold for nearly $2 million. And here's the shocking part: it almost ended up in a coffee shop tip jar. The year was 1998. In Denver, millions of dimes were struck at the U.S. Mint, each stamped with the familiar D Mint mark. But somewhere in that blur of machines, a mistake happened, a rare, microscopic error so unusual, even seasoned coin experts had trouble believing it existed. One small flaw transformed an everyday dime into a life-changing treasure. It wasn't just a simple misprint. This was a coin with layers of mystery: a strange clash between dyes, a doubled image that seemed to shimmer under light, and an odd metallic tone that hinted at a wrong planchet error. Most people would never notice it, unless they knew exactly what to look for. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector, digging through loose change after buying a soda, spotted something unusual. The date looked different, slightly thicker, slightly distorted. He turned the dime under the light and saw doubling on the word Liberty. His heart began to pound. Could it be? He grabbed a magnifying glass, and that's when he saw it, the telltale markers of the ultra-rare 1998 D error dime. He sent it to be graded, expecting maybe a few $100s in value. But when the results came back, collectors were shocked. This wasn't just any error dime. It was one of the finest examples ever found, flawless, sharp, and gleaming like the day it was struck. At auction, the bids flew past 100,000, then 200, then 5. By the time the gavel dropped, the final price was a jaw-dropping $1.9 million. And here's the thing: there could be more out there. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The key lies in the D Mint mark and the strike quality. Many of these rare dimes show a faint doubling effect, sometimes called double die obverse, where the letters and numbers have a shadow-like second image. But the most valuable examples also have a planchet mix-up. They were struck on a blank meant for another coin, giving them a slightly different weight and ring when dropped. To the untrained eye, they look completely normal. To a collector, they're pure gold. Well, silver dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin, because the market for rare modern errors is exploding. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and now treasure hunters across the country are checking their jars, drawers, and glove compartments. But the backstory of how this coin came to be is just as incredible. In 1998, the Denver Mint was running at full speed, producing millions of Roosevelt dimes. At that time, coin presses were still susceptible to misalignment and accidental die damage. A single moment, a shift in pressure, a misfeed, or a tiny foreign object on the die could alter the strike. Usually, these flawed coins were caught and destroyed. But somehow, a few slipped through, hidden in plain sight for decades. The idea that one of these could be sitting in a dusty jar right now, untouched since the 90s, waiting for someone who knows its secret. But what happened when another example surfaced was even stranger. A retired machinist from Arizona walked into a coin shop with a small bag of change. Among the quarters and nickels was a single 1998 D dime with an odd off-center strike. The dealer's eyes widened. Under magnification, the coin revealed the same rare doubling as the $1 million specimen, though slightly less sharp. It still sold for tens of thousands. The machinist had almost tossed it into a vending machine earlier that day. Collectors were stunned. This meant the original wasn't a one-off fluke, there could be a handful more out there. And every time one is found, the buzz shakes the numismatic world. This tiny coin has rewritten the rules of modern treasure hunting. People who once ignored their change now inspect it carefully, tilting dimes under bright light, checking dates, mint marks, and edges. For some, it's become a nightly ritual, a quiet moment of possibility before bed, wondering if tomorrow's pocket change will hold a $1.90 million prize. And here's where you come in. Because if you're watching this, you now know the signs. Look for the date 1998 with the D mint mark just to the right of Roosevelt's portrait. Examine it for doubling, especially on Liberty and the numbers. Second, check the overall strike. Is it unusually sharp, with crisp edges and bold detail? That's a good sign. Third, weigh it if possible. An off-metal strike will often have a slightly different weight than a normal dime. And finally, always handle it carefully. Even a tiny scratch can slash thousands off its value. Many people have overlooked this dime for decades. Don't be one of them, because somewhere out there, in a cash register, a parking meter, or a forgotten coin jar, could be the next $1 million discovery. The story of the 1998 D dime is proof that history, luck, and sharp eyes can turn 10 cents into a fortune. This coin almost slipped through unnoticed, a simple dime. Small, silver, ordinary, but when the truth surfaced, it was worth nearly $1 million. It happened in 2018, a year most people barely remember in the coin world. The U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was producing tens of millions of Roosevelt dimes, and yet, among that ocean of perfectly normal coins, a handful emerged unlike anything the mint had ever meant to release. The first discovery came quietly. A collector in Pennsylvania, sorting through pocket change after a morning coffee run, noticed something strange. At first glance, it was just a dime, but the edges felt wrong, the shine was different, the strike unusually sharp in some areas, yet oddly blurred in others. He thought nothing of it, and almost tossed it into a coin jar, but something made him stop. A tiny mark near the date caught his eye. The P mint mark, stamped ever so slightly out of alignment, seemed to float. It didn't sit where it should, and that was the start of a mystery that would shake the coin community, because when he brought the dime to a local dealer, the reaction was immediate. The dealer froze mid-sentence. "Where did you get this?" he asked, almost whispering. Moments later, calls were being made, experts summoned, magnifiers pulled out. This wasn't just an ordinary strike. It was a minting error, one that should never have escaped the Philadelphia Mint skates. The dime had been struck on a planchet meant for a completely different coin. Its weight, its metal composition, even the microscopic ridges along its edge all whispered the same truth. This was an accident so rare, it might happen once in a generation. When the coin hit the auction block, the bidding didn't just rise, it exploded. Within minutes, the price soared past $100,000, then $300,000. Collectors from around the country, even overseas, were fighting for it, and by the time the gavel came down, that small, silver dime had sold for just under $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Other examples began to surface. A man in Florida found one in a gas station's change tray. A woman in Oregon discovered hers wedged between couch cushions. Each time, the story was the same, a perfectly ordinary day turning into a once-in-a-lifetime windfall, and yet, most people walked right past them, because these coins don't scream their value, they hide it in subtle, almost invisible ways. You have to know exactly what to look for. Dealers were suddenly rushing to examine every 2018 dime they could find. Forums buzzed with speculation. Some claimed there were only a dozen in existence, others whispered of a secret batch destroyed before release, with just a few slipping into the public's hands. One theory suggested that a mint worker, late in his shift, accidentally fed the wrong metal blanks into the coining press. A dime that was never supposed to exist, struck with razor-sharp detail in some spots, ghostly faint impressions in others, a hybrid of perfection and flaw. But here's the most haunting part: many of these dimes are still out there, in cash registers, in coin jars, in the bottom of purses and glove compartments, waiting to be noticed. If you have a 2018 dime with the P mint mark, pick it up and look closely. First, check the weight. It should be exactly 2.268 grams for a normal dime, but these rare errors weigh slightly less. Next, examine the edges. Do the ridges look shallow or uneven? Do they vanish in certain spots? That's a telltale sign. Then, the mint mark. If the P looks even a fraction misaligned, tilted, doubled, or floating higher than usual, you could be holding something extraordinary. Tilt the coin under a bright light. Rare 2018 errors have a strange shimmer, a play of light across the surface that seasoned collectors call the ghost reflection. Don't clean it ever. Even the tiniest polishing can slash its value by tens of thousands. Store it in a coin flip or holder, then get it to a professional grader, because the truth is, somewhere right now, an unknowing person is about to hand a cashier $1 million coin, without ever realizing it, and maybe, just maybe, the next one will fall into your hands. It looked like nothing, just another dime, scuffed and dull, lying at the bottom of a kitchen drawer. But this was no ordinary coin. This single piece of metal would change someone's life forever, because when the truth came out, it was worth over $1 million. It's hard to imagine. A coin you've held 1,000 times without thinking, a dime worth enough to buy a house, a luxury car, and still have money left over. Yet in 1997, deep inside the Denver Mint, something happened that no one expected. A tiny, almost invisible error slipped past the eyes of the inspectors, a mistake so rare, so unusual, that decades later, it would send shockwaves through the coin collecting world. This was a coin destined to be forgotten, yet it became one of the most sought-after treasures in U.S. history. And the wildest part? You could still find one today, hiding in plain sight. But how could such a small piece of change be worth a fortune? It all comes down to the details most people never see, because this dime, the 1997 D-Mint Mark Roosevelt dime, wasn't just rare. It was born from a minting error so mysterious that even some experts doubted it at first, until proof emerged, and jaws dropped. Collectors who first heard the story didn't believe it. Impossible, they said. There's no way a dime from the 90s could be worth that much. But then, an example surfaced at a major coin auction. The bidding started small, a few $100, then a few thousand, then tens of thousands, and then, almost like a scene from a movie, the price shot past $500,000, and didn't stop until it crossed the $1 million mark. The coin world was stunned. A coin that could have easily been tossed into a soda machine had just made history, and here's where it gets even stranger. The 1997 D-Dime's most valuable versions carry a hidden flaw. A misaligned die strike that leaves the design slightly off-center, combined with an ultra-sharp proof-like finish. It's a combination so rare that maybe only a handful exist. No one knows for sure. Some believe it was a test striking accidentally released into circulation. Others think a small batch was struck using dies meant for collectors, and somehow mixed with everyday pocket change. Whatever the truth is, the effect is the same. One moment, it's a dime, the next, it's $1 million miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread fast. Dealers scrambled. Collectors began tearing through their jars of coins. Pawnshops were suddenly fielding calls from strangers begging them to check 1997 dimes, and the frenzy wasn't just hype. More examples began appearing, but only in the rarest, most pristine condition imaginable. A single scratch, a tiny ding, and the value could drop from $1 million to just a few hundred. That's what makes this story so dangerous, because most people, even if they held one in their hand, would never know. They'd spend it without a second thought, and yet, some didn't. One man from Colorado swears he found his in a coin roll he bought from the bank $4.05. Another claims his was hiding in a small envelope his grandfather left behind, marked simply, special. Every discovery comes with its own twist, its own drama, its own proof that life-changing treasure can hide in plain sight. Dealers were shocked. Some even admitted they had handled 1997 D-Dimes in the past, but never thought to check for the telltale errors. That's the cruel beauty of it. This coin doesn't shout its value. It whispers it, and here's the secret you need to know. The most valuable 1997 D-Dimes have razor-sharp details, a mirror-like shine, and that barely perceptible off-center strike, usually less than 10% off, just enough to break perfection and flip it over, and you might notice the torch and olive branch seem ever so slightly shifted in relation to the rim. It's subtle, but it's the kind of detail that could mean the difference between 10 cents and $1 million. But what's even scarier is the possibility that one of these coins is already in your possession, in a coffee can, a shoebox, a coin jar you haven't touched in years, because unlike older rarities, these can hide almost anywhere. They're not locked away in museums. They're out there, waiting, and that's the power of this story. One ordinary moment can turn into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. One coin, one glance, and your entire life could change. So, if you have any 1997 D dimes, don't ignore them, check the strike. Look for that proof like shine, examine the alignment, the crispness of the details, even a hint of perfection could be a signal, and remember, it only takes one. The story of the 1997 D Mint Mark dime is more than a tale of rarity. It's proof that fortune favors the observant, that hidden wealth can be right under your nose, and that the smallest things can hold the biggest secrets. It looked like an ordinary dime. A dull piece of pocket change, the kind most people wouldn't think twice about, but this one almost bought a cup of coffee, until someone realized it was worth more than an entire mansion. A staggering $1.2 million hiding in plain sight. The story begins in 1995, at the Denver Mint. A year when billions of dimes were struck, packaged, and sent into circulation across America. Most were perfect, ordinary, forgettable, but a tiny handful, no more than a rumor at first, came out unlike anything the mint had ever intended. A microscopic flaw, so small you could carry it in your pocket for decades and never know, yet that flaw would one day send shockwaves through the coin collecting world. A retired machinist from Colorado was the first to uncover it. He had been rolling coins to deposit at the bank when something caught his eye. The shine was slightly different. The strike looked just a bit off. He almost ignored it, until instinct told him to take a closer look, and that moment changed his life forever. But what he found wasn't just a mistake, it was a mystery. A minting anomaly so rare that even experienced graders took hours to confirm what they were seeing. Collectors were shocked, dealers were suddenly making phone calls at midnight. One man's casual pocket change had become $1 million miracle. You see, in 1995, an ultra-rare batch of Denver Mint dimes was struck with an extraordinary error. Some were double struck, their designs slightly overlapping, creating a ghost-like image of Roosevelt's profile. Others had an off-center strike so perfect it looked like modern art, but the most valuable of all had a dramatic die clash where the dies themselves collided without a coin in between, leaving ghostly impressions on both sides. Each of these mistakes was a 1 in a billion accident, and each was worth a fortune. And here's the catch: they weren't immediately caught by quality control. Some made their way into bags of change, delivered to banks, some were handed out as grocery store change, some, unbelievably, may still be sitting in jars and drawers across America, completely unnoticed. But the real shock came years later, when one of these error dimes sold at auction for over $1.2 million. The coin world erupted, people tore through their change, desperate to find one. Stories began to spread: a man who found his in an old coffee can in the garage, a woman who discovered hers stuck to a magnet on the fridge for nearly a decade, and a young collector who spotted one at a flea market for just 10 cents, and walked away with a life-changing treasure. But what happened next stunned even the most seasoned experts. Prices didn't just rise, they exploded. The value of these rare 1995 D dimes skyrocketed as demand surged. Dealers were offering blank checks to anyone willing to part with one. Collectors from overseas flew into the US just to get their hands on them, and the mystery deepened, because no one knew exactly how many were out there. The Denver Mint stayed quiet, never officially confirming the full extent of the error. Some believe the flawed dies were destroyed quickly, others think a few slipped out intentionally. It may never be known, but that uncertainty only fuels the frenzy. You're sorting through a handful of change from the gas station, you spot a dime. It's nothing special, until you notice the date, 1995. You flip it over. There's the unmistakable D Mint mark, and then, you see it. A doubling in the lettering. A slight shift in Roosevelt's portrait. Your hands start to shake. Collectors say the feeling is electric. Your mind races. What if this is the one? What if this tiny coin is the key to a new house, a dream vacation, financial freedom? But here's what you need to know if you ever come across a 1995 D dime. At first, check for the mint mark, the tiny D just to the right of Roosevelt's neck. Next, look for doubling on the date, the letters in Liberty, and the motto, "In God We Trust." If the design looks slightly doubled, like it's casting a faint shadow, that's a major sign. Also, inspect the reverse, the torch, olive branch, and oak branch, for signs of distortion, doubling, or misalignment. Any off-center strike, dramatic die crack, or unusual metal texture can skyrocket its value. Even a gentle wipe can destroy thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. Leave it as you found it and have it graded by a professional, because in the world of rare coins, condition is king. One tiny scratch can mean the difference between a $200 fine and $1 million jackpot. Most people have never even heard of the 1995 D Mint Mark $1 million dime. That's your advantage. Every jar of coins, every pocketful of change, every dusty box in the attic could be hiding one. So the next time you get a dime in your change, stop, look closely. That ordinary silver disc could be the ticket to your wildest dreams, because one day, You might hold in your hand a piece of metal that's worth more than a house, more than most people earn in a lifetime, and you'll remember this story. This exact dime could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.